My wife is beautiful and we have a good marriage, 2 years strong. Her younger sister Chloe came to live with us after college. She planned to stay for a few months. That's when the trouble started. After about 2 months, I noticed a change in her behavior. She would give me long looks when my wife wasn't in the room. Her tone of voice became sweeter, more personal. She started dressing differently around the house when it was just us. I work from home. She does too. The proximity became a problem. One Wednesday, it escalated. She came into my home office wearing a revealing singlet and shorts. She asked, "Do you need anything from me?" The way she said it felt loaded. I was uncomfortable and told her I'd call her for lunch. She didn't leave. She sat down and started talking, distracting me from my work. I felt so uneasy I had to leave the room. When I returned, she was lying on my office couch. She was pretending to be asleep, but her position was deliberately tempting. It was a clear invitation. I almost gave in, but I stayed strong. I woke her up and firmly told her to go to her room. She stood up and hugged me. It was a long, slow hug before she finally left. She forgot her phone. I picked it up to return it and saw a message from my wife on the unlocked screen. I looked. I discovered the truth. My wife had been using her sister to test my loyalty. All of it was a setup. I was shocked. I felt betrayed, but I was also proud I hadn't fallen for it. When my wife came home, I confronted them. I pretended I didn't know about the test. I said Chloe was seducing me and needed to leave. My wife smiled. She praised me. She confessed it was all her idea. She begged for forgiveness and asked me to let Chloe stay. Now I have a new problem. The test is over, but the thoughts are there. My wife's plan planted a seed in my mind. Now I see Chloe differently. Her staying here is a huge risk. I can't stop thinking about what almost happened. I'm not sure I can control my feelings until she leaves. I don't know what to do. Should I tell my wife the truth? Should I say her test backfired and now I'm tempted for real? Or should I just try to endure it and hope nothing happens? What would you do in my situation? Please, I need your advice. Let me know in the comments. If you want to know how this ends, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. I'll post an update based on your best advice. My name is David, and for 2 years my life was not just good, it was predictable in the best way. I knew the sound of my wife Sarah's car pulling into the driveway at 6:15 p.m. I knew the precise shade of her smile when I'd have her favorite meal waiting. I knew the weight of her head on my shoulder when we watched movies on Friday nights. We built a fortress of routines, and inside those walls I felt like a king. She is the kind of beautiful that makes you believe in a higher power. Fair-skinned, with eyes that held a quiet intelligence. Her family is respected and mine is too. Our marriage was seen as a good match, and for 2 years it was. The fortress walls began to show their first hairline fracture the day her sister, Chloe, arrived. She didn't just walk in, she erupted. Where Sarah was calm melody, Chloe was a sudden loud chord. She had just finished her university education and was buzzing with that unshakable confidence mixed with the terror of the real world. Her plan was to stay with us for a few months, find a job, and get her own place. It sounded simple. It was anything but. The first week was fine. She was polite, helpful. She'd help with dishes and told funny stories about her classmates. I saw her as a kid sister. I felt a protective warmth towards her. That was my first mistake. The change started subtly. It was a Tuesday, I think. Sarah had left for work. The house was quiet, save for the clacking of my keyboard. I was deep in a complex coding problem for my remote job, the lines of text on my screen a world of their own. I got up to get more coffee and saw Chloe in the kitchen. She was leaning against the counter, scrolling on her phone. She was wearing a loose tank top and those tight shorts women wear for yoga. It wasn't inappropriate, but it was different from the jeans and sweaters she wore when Sarah was home. "Morning," I said, moving towards the coffee maker. "Hey, David," she said, her voice a notch softer, more intimate than usual. She didn't move away. I had to reach around her to get a mug. My arm brushed against her back. It was a fleeting contact, but she didn't flinch. She just looked up from her phone and smiled. "You work so hard." "Gotta pay the bills," I said, trying to sound casual. I poured my coffee and got out of there. My heart was beating a little too fast. "You're imagining things," I told myself. "She's just friendly. She's from a good family. This is your wife's sister. Stop it." But the seed was planted, and in the quiet, fertile soil of my home office, it began to grow. A few days later, I was on a video call with my team. My office door was open. I saw Chloe walk past once, then again. On the third pass, she paused in the doorway. She wasn't doing anything, just standing there listening. I felt my concentration break. I stumbled over my words. After the call, I got up and closed the door. I had never closed my door before. That evening, Sarah noticed. "Why was your door closed today? Getting antisocial," she joked. "Just a really important call," I lied, the words tasting sour in my mouth. I was lying to my wife. Not about another woman, but about the discomfort her sister was causing. It felt like a betrayal nonetheless. The tension was no longer just in my head. It was in the air I breathed. It was in the way I'd hesitate before leaving my room in the morning, listening for her movements. My sanctuary was becoming my prison. And the worst part was, I was the only one who knew the walls were closing in. The lie about the closed door festered inside me. Sarah's trust was so complete, so absolute, that my small deception felt like a stain on our pristine life. I vowed to be normal. I would keep my door open. I would not read into things. I would be the brother-in-law I was supposed to be. This resolve lasted precisely 3 days. It was Friday. Sarah was buzzing with excitement for our weekend plans, a dinner with friends. "Chloe, you have to come," she said, squeezing her sister's hand. "It'll be so much fun. David, you don't mind, right?" "Of course not," I said, the good husband. "The more the merrier." Chloe smiled, a slow, deliberate curve of her lips. "I'd love to. I need to see how the old married folks have fun." Her eyes flicked to me for a split second too long. My appetite vanished. The dinner was a special kind of torture. Chloe sat diagonally across from me. Every time I looked up, her gaze was there, waiting. She laughed at all my jokes, even the stupid ones. She engaged me in conversations about my work, asking surprisingly insightful questions that showed she'd been paying attention. Sarah beamed, happy to see her two favorite people getting along. "See," Sarah whispered to me as we got dessert. "I told you she'd fit right in." I just nodded, a rock of guilt sitting in my stomach. She was fitting in a little too well. The real test came the following Monday. Sarah had a big presentation and left early, stressed and distracted. The house was silent. I was deep in a flow state, solving a problem that had eluded me for days. The code was unfolding beautifully on my screen. A soft knock on my open door broke my concentration. Chloe stood there, holding 2 mugs. "I made you some tea. You look like you could use a break." It was a kind gesture, a normal, kind gesture. But the way she placed the mug on my desk, her fingers lingering near mine, made my skin prickle. She didn't leave. She leaned against the doorframe, sipping her own tea. "You're really smart, you know that," she said, her voice soft. "The way you can just get lost in all that, it's impressive." "Thanks," I muttered, staring at my screen, willing her to go away. "It must get lonely, though, being in here all day by yourself." "I'm used to it." "Maybe you shouldn't have to be." The air crackled. That wasn't a friendly comment. That was a proposition. I finally looked at her. She was watching me, her expression unreadable. "I have a lot of work to do, Chloe." She pushed off the doorframe. "Right, of course. Sorry to bother you." She left, but the energy she brought into the room remained, a thick, uncomfortable haze. I couldn't code anymore. Her words played on a loop in my head. Maybe you shouldn't have to be. What was that supposed to mean? Was I reading it wrong? Was I the one making it weird? The self-doubt was the most corrosive part. It made me question my own perceptions. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe I was a conceited man who thought every young woman was after him. The thought shamed me. That night I tried to talk to Sarah. It was a feeble, clumsy attempt. "Hey, does Chloe seem okay to you?" I asked as we got ready for bed. "She seems great. Why, has she said something?" Sarah looked at me with genuine concern. No, nothing like that. She just seems a little bored, maybe, restless." "Oh, honey, that's sweet of you to worry. It's just the post-graduation slump. She'll find her way. I'm just glad she has us." She turned out the light, her faith in the situation absolute. I lay in the darkness, listening to her steady breathing, feeling more alone than I ever had in our marriage. I was the lone sentry seeing smoke on the horizon, but no one would believe me until the flames were at the gate. The pressure was building. The small incidents were adding up, each one a turn of the screw. The friendly touches, the intense looks, the suggestive comments disguised as concern. My home was no longer a place of peace. It was a pressure cooker, and I was waiting for the lid to blow. The 2 days after the tea incident were a study in silent tension. I became a ghost in my own home. I moved from our bedroom to my office with a quiet urgency, avoiding common areas. I ate lunch at my desk, the door firmly shut. I was punishing myself, I think. Punishing myself for the thoughts in my head and for the lie of omission I was living with Sarah. But the universe, it seemed, was tired of waiting. It was Wednesday. The morning had been normal. Sarah left with a quick kiss, her mind already on her day. I buried myself in work, the code a welcome, logical refuge from the emotional chaos. For a few hours I almost forgot. Then, a little past noon, a soft knock came at my door. My heart sank before I even looked up. It was her. Chloe stood in the doorway and the air left my lungs. She was wearing a thin, cream-colored singlet and shorts so small they were barely there. It wasn't just the clothes, it was the way she wore them, a deliberate, conscious presentation. "Do you need anything from me?" The question was a whisper, but it screamed in the quiet room. It wasn't about food. It was a direct, unambiguous offer. My mouth went dry. "Excuse me," I managed to choke out, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears. A faint, knowing smile played on her lips. "Lunch? Do you want me to make you lunch now?" My mind screamed no. Screamed for me to tell her to leave, to shut the door, to call Sarah. But the programming of politeness, the fear of causing a scene, was too strong. I'll call you when I'm hungry," I said, turning back to my screen, a cowardly dismissal. She didn't take the hint. Instead, she walked in and sat in the chair opposite my desk, curling one leg underneath her. "It's so peaceful in here," she murmured, her eyes scanning the room, lingering on me. "A real man cave, I like it." I couldn't focus. The words on the screen blurred into nonsense. Her presence was a physical weight on me. Every rustle of her clothes, every soft sigh, was a detonation in the silence. I felt trapped. This was my space, my sanctuary, and she had invaded it, twisting it into something uncomfortable and dangerous. I couldn't take it. I stood up abruptly, the chair rolling back with a jarring screech. "I need some air," I muttered, not looking at her, and I fled. I walked out the front door and stood on the porch, the afternoon sun feeling like an interrogation lamp. I was hiding on my own porch. The humiliation was a bitter taste in my mouth. How had it come to this? After a few minutes, my panic subsided into a shaky resolve. "This is your house, your office. Go back in there and act normal." I marched back inside, determined to reclaim my space. The scene that greeted me stole my resolve away in an instant. She was on the couch, not sitting but lying on her side, one arm tucked under her head, her body a long, deliberate curve. Her eyes were closed, her lips slightly parted. She was pretending to be asleep, but the rawness of the energy in the room screamed that it was a performance, and I was the only audience. My feet felt glued to the floor. The distance from the door to the couch was a chasm. I saw the faint rise and fall of her chest. I saw the way the thin fabric of her singlet stretched across her. The thought, clear and terrifying, flashed in my mind. One step. That's all it would take. One step in your life as you know it is over. I took a step, then another, not towards temptation but towards the battle I had to win. I stopped beside the couch. "Chloe," my voice was rough, gravelly, "go to your room now." Her eyes fluttered open. There was no surprise in them, only a flicker of disappointment. She slowly, languidly uncurled herself and stood up. She was so close I could smell her perfume, something sweet and tropical, nothing like Sarah's lavender. And then she did it. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around my waist, resting her head against my chest. Time stopped. I should have pushed her away, I should have shouted, but I didn't. I stood there, a statue of shock and guilt, my arms hanging uselessly at my sides. I felt the warmth of her body through my clothes. I felt her heartbeat, or maybe it was mine, a frantic, panicked drum against my ribs. The hug lasted a full minute, a lifetime. When she finally let go and slipped out of the room without a word, I felt like I could breathe again, but the air was tainted. I stumbled back to my desk, my legs weak. That's when I saw it. A sleek black phone on the chair where she had been sitting first. Her phone. I picked it up, my hand trembling. I was going to take it to her to end this interaction for good, but as I moved, the screen lit up. A WhatsApp notification. "Sarah, any progress?" The world tilted on its axis. My blood turned to ice. I tapped the screen. It wasn't locked. The chat with my wife opened up. "Chloe, he's stubborn. I tried the couch thing. He told me to leave." "Sarah, good, just a little longer. I need to be sure." I read the words once, twice. A third time, the reality of it didn't just sink in, it detonated. The sanctuary, the 2 years of trust, the morning coffee, the evening laughter, it all crumbled into dust in that single, silent moment. It was a test, a sick, orchestrated prank. My own wife had hired a siren, her own sister, to shipwreck me. The pride I'd felt for resisting evaporated, replaced by a cold, sharp fury that burned away the last of my shame. And beneath the fury, a profound, soul-deep hurt that left me feeling hollowed out. I had been fighting a war for the sanctity of my marriage, and the general of the other side was the woman I slept beside every night. Right there in that moment, my entire reality shattered. Have you ever had a moment like that, where you found out everything you believed was a lie? Type "reality check" in the comments if you know that feeling. I sat in my office chair for a long time, the phone a cold, hard weight in my hand. The hum of my computer was an insult to the silence now filling the house, a silence that felt different. It wasn't the tense quiet of before. It was the hollow, echoing silence of a tomb. Our marriage was in that room with me, and I was sitting Shiva for it. The initial icepick of shock had melted into a slow, burning rage. I looked around my office, my space, and felt violated twice over. First by Chloe's performance, and now by the chilling calculation behind it. Every glance, every touch, every seemingly innocent word over the past months had to be reevaluated through this new, horrifying lens. It was all a script. I was the unwitting actor, and my wife was the director, watching from the shadows, critiquing my performance. "He's stubborn. Just a little longer. I need to be sure." The words were branded onto my brain. What wasn't she sure of? 2 years of my life. 2 years of love, of commitment, of being a faithful husband. Had it meant nothing? Had it all been a prelude to this test? A dark, bitter part of me wondered what would have happened if I'd failed. Would Sarah have emerged from the wings with a camera, triumphant in her proven suspicion? The theatricality of it, the sheer, manipulative cruelty, made me feel sick. I heard a door open down the hall, Chloe's room. The sound snapped me out of my stupor. The phone, I had to return it. I couldn't let her know I knew. Not yet. The power had shifted. I held the truth, and for now, that was my only weapon. I walked to her door, my footsteps unnaturally loud. I knocked, my knuckles cracking against the wood. She opened it, her face a careful mask of contrition. "David, I'm so—" I cut her off, holding out the phone. "You left this." My voice was flat, devoid of all the emotion churning inside me. She took it, her fingers brushing against mine. This time the contact felt repulsive. A final, failed piece of acting. "Thanks," she mumbled, her eyes searching my face for a reaction. I gave her nothing. I just turned and walked away, back to my office, and closed the door. I had a plan now. It was a cruel plan, maybe, but it felt justified. I would play my part one last time. I would give them the finale they had orchestrated. The hours until Sarah came home were the longest of my life. I rehearsed my lines. I practiced my expressions in the dark reflection of my monitor. Confusion, hurt, righteous anger. I was going to be the star of their twisted play. Finally, I heard her key in the lock. The familiar sound, once a comfort, now felt like a trigger being cocked. "Hey honey, I'm home," she called out, her voice light and happy. I didn't answer. I waited in the living room, standing like a prosecutor awaiting the defendant. She came in, dropping her bag, her smile fading when she saw my face. "David, what's wrong?" "Where's Chloe?" I asked, my tone icy. "She's in her room." "Why, what's going on?" "Get her now." A flicker of something, anxiety, excitement, crossed her face. She called for Chloe, who emerged from her room looking suitably nervous. "Okay, we're both here," Sarah said, her voice tightening. "What is this about?" I took a breath, launching into my performance. I looked directly at Chloe, pouring all my manufactured disgust into the look. "Your sister," I said, the words dripping with feigned pain, "has been trying to seduce me." Sarah's hand flew to her mouth, a perfect picture of shock. I continued, laying out the evidence, the looks, the clothes, the scene in my office today. She came into my office wearing almost nothing. She laid on the couch. She hugged me. "I am not that kind of man, Sarah. I don't know what kind of game this is, but I want her out of our house. Now, she needs to pack her bags and go." The silence that followed was profound. I watched Sarah's face, waiting for the mask to crack. And then it did. The shock melted away, replaced by a radiant, relieved smile. It was the most devastating sight I had ever seen. She started to laugh, a giddy, nervous sound. "Oh, David, oh my God." She rushed forward and threw her arms around me. I stood stiff, unyielding. "You passed," she whispered into my ear, her voice thick with emotion. "You passed, baby. It was me. It was all me. I had to be sure. After what happened with my parents, with my dad, I just had to be sure you were different." She pulled back, her eyes shining with tears of joy. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, but you have no idea how happy this makes me. You're the man I thought you were. You're my man." I looked from her ecstatic face to Chloe's guilty one. The pieces snapped into place. Her father's infidelity had broken her family. This was her trauma, her insane, misguided way of seeking security. But the revelation didn't bring warmth. It only fueled the cold fire inside me. She had taken her baggage and packed it with live explosives, then placed it in the center of our home. I played my final card. I let my face shift from anger to stunned disbelief. You did this. You used your own sister to test me." She begged, she praised me, she swore it was over. And then she asked the question that sealed our new, painful reality. "Please, David, forgive me, and please let her stay. She has nowhere else to go right now. It's over, I promise." I looked at my wife, the beautiful stranger, and at her sister, the living, breathing reminder of this betrayal. I had won their game, but I had lost my marriage the moment they started playing it. "Fine," I said, the word tasting like ash. "She can stay." But as I walked away, I knew the most dangerous part was just beginning. The test was over, but the temptation was now real, fueled by anger and a sense of entitlement I had never felt before. The fortress had not been stormed from the outside. The foundation had been excavated from within. The week that followed was a masterclass in psychological warfare fought in whispers and silence. The house, once a haven, became a stage for a tense, three-act play where everyone knew their lines but no one spoke the truth. Sarah floated through the days on a cloud of vindicated bliss. Her touches became more frequent, more possessive. "My loyal husband," she'd murmur, kissing my cheek as she passed. Each endearment felt like a needle pricking my skin. Her happiness was a monument built on the grave of my trust, and I was forced to live in its shadow. I played my part, offering her tight smiles and monosyllabic answers which she mistook for residual hurt. She thought time would heal it. She had no idea she was pouring salt in the wound every single day. Chloe, meanwhile, had undergone a transformation. The bold seductress was gone, replaced by a ghost. She dressed in baggy sweatshirts and kept her eyes downcast. She moved through the house like a mouse, scurrying from her room to the kitchen and back. The few times our paths crossed, she flinched as if expecting me to strike her. Her guilt was a palpable thing, a thick fog that filled any room she entered, and perversely, her vulnerability made her more dangerous than ever. The powerful temptress was a fantasy I could resist. The broken, remorseful girl stirred something more complicated and far less manageable within me, a twisted mix of pity and a desire to console that could easily curdle into something else. The real battle, however, was waged inside my own skull. My thoughts were no longer my own. They were a traitorous council, constantly debating. "She set you up," one voice would whisper, sharp with rage. "She didn't trust you. After everything, she thought you were capable of that. You owe her nothing." "But she's your wife," another, weaker voice would counter. "She was damaged by her past. It was a stupid, fearful mistake." Then the first voice would snap back, "A mistake. It was a calculated betrayal, and now she's happy. She feels secure. She doesn't deserve to feel secure. Maybe you should show her what a real betrayal feels like." This was the darkest thought, the one that terrified me the most. It wasn't just about attraction to Chloe anymore. It was about vengeance. It was about reclaiming power. The imaginings my wife had created were now morphing into detailed, vengeful fantasies. What would happen if I just walked into Chloe's room one night? Would she tell Sarah? Or would her own guilt keep her silent? The prank could become real, and the poetic justice of it felt bitterly satisfying. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday. Sarah was working late. The house was dark, save for the lamp in my office and the faint blue glow of the television from the living room. I went to the kitchen for water and found Chloe there, standing by the sink, staring out at the downpour. She was crying, silent tears tracing paths down her cheeks. She jumped when she saw me. "I'm sorry," she whispered, wiping her face frantically. "I'll go." "Wait." The word was out of my mouth before I could stop it. She froze, her shoulders tense. "Why did you do it?" I asked, my voice low. "Why would you agree to that?" She wouldn't look at me. "She's my sister. She was a wreck after she found those old letters from my dad, from his. You know," she begged me. "She said she'd never feel safe if she didn't know for sure." She finally met my eyes, hers swimming with misery. "I never wanted to. I felt disgusting the whole time. You have to believe me. You were so good to her, and we. Her words confirmed everything and nothing. It wasn't about me. It was about their family, their history, their damage. I was just a prop. "I lost myself for a minute in there," she continued, her voice barely audible. "The hugging. That was too far. I'm so sorry, David. You must hate me." And in that moment, I didn't. The rage I felt for her evaporated, leaving only a profound, weary understanding. We were both victims of my wife's insecurity. We were both trapped in the aftermath. I took a step closer. The air crackled, but it was a different energy now. It wasn't temptation. It was a dangerous, shared complicity. "I don't hate you," I said. The look she gave me then was a mixture of gratitude and something else, a flicker of the old recognition, the connection forged during those tense months. It was a look that said, "You and I, we're in this together." It was the most dangerous look she had ever given me. I turned and walked away, my heart hammering. That shared moment, that bond of mutual victimhood, was a far stronger lure than any seduction. It created an us against her. And us was a very slippery slope. That night I lay beside Sarah, listening to the rhythm of her breathing, and I knew with chilling certainty that I was no longer the man she had tested. That man was gone. The man lying next to her was angry, betrayed, and now perilously close to someone who understood the woman he was supposed to resist. The test was over, but the real trial of my character was just beginning, and I was no longer sure I wanted to pass. That moment in the kitchen changed everything. It stopped being about lust and started being about a shared pain. Have you ever felt a dangerous connection form from a shared bad experience? Is that bond real or just a trap? Let's discuss in the comments. I couldn't believe my eyes or explain clearly how I was feeling. I was proud that I didn't fall for the temptation even though it was so close, but shocked that my own wife would use her sister to test me. Not even her friend, but sister. When she came back in the evening, I summoned her and the sister and told her that her sister should prepare and go home. She asked me if there's any problem, and I pretended, as if I didn't know that she was the one using her to tempt me. I told her that her sister was trying to seduce me, and I'm not that kind of man who sleeps with more than one woman. My wife started smiling and praising me. I was acting all surprised, and she ended up saying that she's the one testing me through her sister. She begged me to forgive her and allow her sister stay with us until she's ready to travel. The main problem right now is that I'm nursing imaginations in my brain, and her sister staying with us is risky because we might end up making the prank to be real. I don't know if I should tell my wife how I think about her sister now or try to hold myself, but I can't guarantee not doing anything with her till she leaves, after what she has created in my brain. I'll be in the comments for some advices on what to do.